Oh. I'm so sorry. If I had known...
Hey Indie Warriors, welcome to I Dream of Indie. My name's Ole Gamer Joe. Today we're taking a quick look at some early gameplay impressions for Crimson Spires on the Nintendo Switch, a vampire visual novel with some detective work, some first-person exploration. This is a weird one. The story begins with a character named Erika, a detective on the force, finding out that a van has crashed that was carrying a prisoner. She then has to hurry over to that scene where she locates a lot of dead bodies, and only one cop seems to still be alive, named Jones. Jones then gets in a really hairy situation when the escaped prisoner August sneaks up behind him with a shard of glass, and this thrusts Erika into a very dangerous situation. You'll have to make your first choice here. Do you shoot or do you stand by and try to talk your way through things? You'll actually make quite a few different choices throughout this game, and that can determine which branching path you take and what ending you ultimately get. Don't want to spoil too much of the story here. That's not the I Dream of Indie way. But eventually this all leads to a bigger detective case and some vampires getting involved, and ultimately perhaps having to work with this escaped prisoner August. An unlikely alliance is formed, or is it? Well, it's all kinda up in the air because the world has more or less been destroyed by these massive pillars that decided to rise from the ground. I'll just leave it there. The rest is for you to unravel, and it looks like there's quite a bit to unravel with, I think, 10 chapters in this game. Each chapter has felt really long so far. Again, I've played about 2 hours and I'm still only in the second of those chapters, but here's what I can tell you. I actually kinda dig the writing here. It's not bad, a pretty solid translation. Didn't notice a lot of spelling errors or anything. What is a bit weird is that you'll randomly get some voice acting from some of the characters, but only sporadically. It's not a fully voice acted game, and when it does appear, a lot of the performances, at least so far, have felt a little bit uninspired and almost unnecessary. I could have probably done without them completely. Not a ton of options in the game, but it doesn't really need a lot either. I found that scrolling through text was easy. You can increase the font, so if you're playing handheld, I had no problems reading the font that way, but you can increase it to a maximum size that feels really comfortable. But what has felt a little bit unnecessary so far are these first-person exploration sections of the game that just sort of randomly pop up from time to time. They don't really add much to the experience, I would say, because basically you just walk to either one or two points of interest, which are very clearly labeled with the A button. You press the A button and then it's just back to the visual novel points of the game again. So maybe later on there's some more puzzles introduced, but I haven't experienced anything like that within the first 2 hours. Overall, this game's a little silly, but it kind of tries to take itself serious at the same time, making for an interesting experience. I kind of am enjoying it. I don't think I could sit there and read it all day or anything like that, but just like a book, you might pick it up, read it for a while, and then put it down and go back to it later. There's some fairly intriguing characters. I do ultimately want to know how things end up, and I'm curious how my choices will ultimately affect everything. I do have to point out though that while the art is halfway decent and it looks kind of cool when it's mixed in with the 3D graphics, those 3D graphics are pretty rough, very low res textures, especially when you get up close, so this one's definitely not a looker. I didn't run into any major performance issues. You would hope not with graphics like these, but you're not getting anywhere near 60 frames per second either, which seems a little bit puzzling given how bad the game looks in terms of the 3D visuals. But there is this really cheesy, corny soundtrack going on in the background. Wow, I'm kind of hungry now that I said that, and I thought it was amusing. It just sort of drifts off after a while. I was zoning out to it. It goes along fairly well with the narrative. Overall, yeah, not a fan of the voice acting, but the sound design, halfway decent here. So yeah, if you dig detective games, if you like vampires in detective games, this one might be worth checking out.
My hand might slip.
Thank Thank you so much for watching and supporting I Dream of Indie. It helps us bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming. We would now like to take a moment to pay tribute to our great indie warriors who support us through channel memberships. Mitchell Hall, Bunny, Kevilo, Bill Tcast, Christian Cruz, Strict9, Chris Jackson, Nathan Moore, Peach, Adriana Amato, CJR, Falco Lombardi, C Coil, Skeptism, Jen Rose, Jesse CPM, and Julian Kolbus. Thank you so much for all you do for independent developers, publishers, and for I Dream of Indie. Everybody else, please head down to the description box below. Let's stop that echo chamber once and for all and bring a voice back to the voiceless ones in gaming.